Good afternoon, everyone, and you're welcome to Matters Arising on Podium International TV. My name is Titilola Aboyade Cole, and with me in the studio today is Mr. Kayode Emola, my co-host. Hello, Mr. Kayode.
You're welcome, Coach Tak.
Okay, the topic will be tricky. Sorry, we're late for the people who've been waiting for us. We're having to deal with a lot of things. The topic for today is leadership in Yoruba land. Leadership in Yoruba land. But before we go ahead, we'd like to play something for us. One moment, please. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. That was the legend, late Hubert Ogunde, talking about Yoruba Ronu, urging the Yorubas to sit down and think and stop killing ourselves. But before we move further, I'm sure Mr. Kayode Emola has something to share with us. Mr. K, let's talk about the leadership in Yoruba land.
Yeah, thank you very much. One of the building blocks of any society is leadership, uh, and it becomes a very big problem. Uh, and why that's been the problem we've faced. A lot of people may not see it as problem, but that's the challenge that has been bedeviling us. So if we go back way back before this present era, so we saw when the British came and they were signing treaties with our different obas. Whilst they were signing these treaties with our different obas, there was no cohesive leadership in Yoruba land. And when we say leadership, uh, it's not saying that there are no leaders. There are leaders, but there was no cohesive leadership. Take for instance, if you come to the United Kingdom, you have the monarch, you have the queen. That is an institution that has been established. So when you talk of leadership, you talk of succession. Now, in terms of Yoruba land, we have these so many kingdoms, but none of them could hold together. None of them could hold the Yoruba together. So you have the Alaafin, who is the tribal head of the Oyo Empire. You have the Oni, who is the tribal head and the spiritual head of all Yorubas. But then you also have pockets of Obas. You have the Awujales, you have the Alake, you have the Olugbo, and several Isheyin, and several monarchs. So there's no one cohesive force to say if the Alaafin says something, some people will say we are not under the Alaafin, so why should we obey? If the Olugbo says something, it will be within his own jurisdiction. The Oni is one rallying force that's been rallying so many Yorubas together, because quite a lot of Yoruba people and Oduduwa descendants in other realms like Benin, Delta, Ishakiri, and those aspects that believes in the leadership of Oduduwa also accepts the leadership of the Oni. Now, the main problem we have in Yoruba today is we don't have that cohesive leadership. And when the era of the British, when they were going, there was this clause about how leadership will be based in Nigeria. So it was convenient for them to give it to the Fulani hegemony, because they looked at the Yorubas and we are not ready. And even till today, we are still not ready, which is a big problem. And why I say we are not ready is there is we have these so many traditional institutions who should come together and say, this is the one person we would listen to. It's not a matter of this person is older than us or this person is younger than us, but this is the one person we want to bestow the leadership of Yoruba to. And so, because that's not been done, it now took the turn of uh, the political structure that Britain left. So the political structure that Britain left was that there's premier, but who does the premier report to? The premier reports to the governor, who then reports to the president, which is wrong. Yoruba is supposed to be a sovereign state. With the totality and the finality of our powers is supposed to rest on the shoulders of Yorubas. But
Thank you.
today, we've ceded that power and that leadership to Nigeria. So that's the just a brief overview of the problem we're facing today in Yoruba land.
Thank you, Mr. K. Now, why do you think what? Okay, I understand the overview, but we as Yoruba people were no longer under the leadership of the colonial masters. We now have our own Yoruba land. Why is it difficult for us to actually have one leader and believe in one leader? Why do we have why do we still have leadership problem 60 something years after
Yeah,
independence?
the thing is, leaders are born, and some leaders are made. To be a leader, you have to earn it. You have to really earn it. It's not automatic. Um, Leadership is not automatic. I
Okay.
made mention of the story of the British. They also went through thousands of years, uh, and all the British monarchs came together and say, we want to recognize this one person as our leader. So
Mm.
the British had several houses. They have House of Lancaster, House of York, House of Tudor. They have several houses, and each one had always been the leader until there was this massive fight between the House of Lancaster and the House of York, and the House of Lancaster were able to defeat the House of York, and they started ruling. Now, we would that is not to propose to say, okay, let all our obas go and slug it out within themselves, fight themselves to the death, and whoever becomes victorious becomes the ruling family. No, but we need to realize that except we come together and have that structure where we say whoever becomes the Alafin becomes the voice of Yoruba, or whoever becomes the Oni becomes the voice of Yoruba, or whoever becomes the Alake or the Awujale, or whoever, I don't care, becomes the voice of Yoruba. So if we can work out that structure, at the moment, that is very difficult because Yorubas, the way it is now, we are allowing outsiders to dictate our future. And that
Our
is the
future.
bane of the problems we are having.
Okay, thank you. I was just going to say that that's a very difficult task. And I'll tell you this. In Ijebu for several years, they didn't, I think they have somebody now. They did not have Orimolusi, the Oba of Ijebu. They would rather have, they have different areas in Ijebu. There's Atikori, there's Okeshokmi, there's, so they would rather have the
Okay.
Shokwen of Okeshokwen, the Atikori of Ikori, rather than have their Orimolusi, and then they have the smaller obers, they just could not come together to agree and say, this is Orimolusi. So if we have that problem in Ijebu, Ijebu is
Just
I
one
would
part.
say a town, or sorry,
Yeah, just one small enclave in Yoruba land.
enclave in Ogun State, in Ijebu, not even Ogun State, in Ijebu. Ijebu is just one part of Ijebu, and they can't even agree on having one Orimolusi. How then will the whole of Ijebu or the whole of Ogun State, talk less of the whole of Yoruba people, say this is our Oba? How did we get here? I thought they
Yeah,
used to
no,
say Oba
it's
Balori Ongogo.
it's a very difficult problem, and we've not really looked deeply into this problem, because not until we solve this problem, it will be
Mm,
very difficult to solve the Yoruba conundrum. Uh, and like what you say, sometimes it's
mm.
communication problem, and Yoruba call it Idiayede. Now, Idiayede happens when everybody is trying to speak at the same time and nobody is understanding
Listening. Mm.
each other. If you look at the Ukraine crisis going on presently, the battle between the West and Russia. Now, Russia is saying we've been talking and talking and talking, and it seems like it's bouncing off a wall and nobody is listening. And the West is saying we've been warning and warning and warning. It seems like Putin is not listening. So what then happens is we're supposed to now have elders Because mind you, we have kingmakers, and these kingmakers, they are not just one person. They are a group of people who makes king. They are supposed to be the custodian of the traditional values, to say if something goes wrong, who do we call onto? And in the olden days, they have been the ones who, if the king goes wrong, they will say, King, the people no longer want you. They want somebody else as a king.
Mm,
And that is where you see the king say, okay, if they no longer want me, I cannot abdicate, then I have to take my own life.
mm.
But we've seen that in the last 100 to 200 years, no king in Yoruba has taken their own life, even though all the kings are not doing what the people want. No, it's true. We could laugh about it, but these are serious issues.
I
These are
know, but
serious.
they don't want to take their own lives. It's a
Yeah,
big
these are because
deal.
nobody cares. Nobody cares about the people anymore. And leadership. When we talk of leadership, it is not your political leaders who come for 4 years and then go. Those ones are just stage manships or stage womanships or whatever. Leadership builds the future. They sit down and have a vision for themselves, for their community, for their people, and for their unborn generation. Leadership sees afar. Leadership sees the end from the beginning. Leadership can perceive when things go wrong, and they can call things to order.
Mm,
So the from when the British came in, they disrupted the model we had. It wasn't as if the model we had was a very good model. It was just not advanced. When I say advanced, in its own right, it was advanced, but we've not. How will I call it? We've not encompassed it for the whole Yoruba.
mm,
So what the British did then was, now, okay, I am going to join all these people together. So that was the first thing Britain did. And how did they do it? Now, they went individually to all the Obas and signing treaties with them. So they went to the Alaafin, they signed a treaty with Alaafin. They went to Ijesha, they signed a treaty with Ijesha. They went to Awujale, Alake, Egba, Oni. So they were signing treaties all around with
individually.
all these individual Obas in their
Mm,
domain. So you asked, how could we do it? It was a painstaking job. It wasn't a 1 year job. It wasn't a 2 year or 10 years job.
mm,
So they did this painstakingly to sign all these treaties with all these Obas. Now, when they signed all these treaties with the Obas, they now fused them together and then put an
mm,
administrator over them. And that was the beginning of our problem.
mm,
And that is still the problem we are facing today. So once they fused all of them together, then who owned them? It was Britain, because it was Britain who did the hard, heavy lifting of doing that. So all the Obas could have done was come together. Maybe have a council of Obas, sit down together and say, this is how we want to govern Yoruba land. In
mm.
the olden days, what they do is they go to sign treaty among themselves, which is what is still going on. You see a lot of European countries, the NATO alliance, it is countries coming together and saying we are signing treaties. Any attack on one is an attack on all.
On all. Mm. Okay. Now we know what our problems are, or should I say what our problem is? But how do we then go about solving it? Because let me tell you, ordinary WhatsApp group, there's leadership problem, there's insubordination. If you say this is the admin, and you say this is the governing rules of this WhatsApp group, people will still violate the rules. People will still attack the perceived leader or the admin. So we need a roadmap on how to get out of this mess. How do
Yeah,
we pick? Sorry, Mr. K. How do Yorubas? What are the suggestions that we have? Like, okay, where do we start? Because where a house divided by itself cannot stand. So if we continue to say, "Eleyo shogami, iyan shogami," I don't care. Would that roll over me? The Bible says one will chase 1,000, two will
And
chase
two is
10,000.
10,000. Yeah.
So if we keep chasing individually, this is my own group, this is my own organization, this is my own association, you will continue to chase 1,000, and we are chasing millions or billions of people against us. So, but if we come to imagine if two will chase 10,000, that means we're multiplying by 10. So if one will chase 1,000 and two will chase 10,000, mathematicians, you know that three will chase 100,000,
100,000.
and you know that four will chase 1,000,000, and five will chase 10,000,000. That's the law of the Lord. So how do we get our people to actually understand that àìrìnpọ̀ ejò òun ni ò jẹ́ kí àbáwọn ṣe ń pòwe yẹn, òun ló jẹ́ kí ìyà jẹ òwe jù.
Yeah,
Àìrìnpapọ̀. So
yeah,
please.
thank you very much. It's a challenge and it's a problem. Trying to solve it, I don't think that's possible. Because that's it's not
Wow.
impossible, but I don't think that's productive. In the sense that now, when you're talking of a community, I see a lot of people always saying, these are my people, those are your people, that are not my people, and this and that. And people fight on social media platforms and fight on WhatsApp and fight on groups and fight on organization and fight on. Now, for me, those are not the real problems because those are just vehicles. Now, if I'm going to New York today and somebody says, I want to take a plane, and someone says, I want to take a ferry because I like sea travel, and somebody say, oh, I want to drive my own car. Somebody says, I want to take a bike. And so those are just mediums to get to New York. So if I am having a problem on the medium I use, then the medium is not the problem. Either myself or whoever is there is certainly much the problem or the challenge. So if you talk of platforms, why people are fighting about who wants to be admin on platforms or who wants to
No, I
control
just
it.
use that as
Yeah.
an
So,
example.
or who wants to control an organization. For me, that is not the objective. The objective is how do we build a cohesive leadership. Now, the way you can build a cohesive leadership is to have, first and foremost, you have to build a rule-based system. You have to build a rule-based system. It is only when you have rules and regulation that is when you can begin to have a society. Now, they say a city where there is no law, there is no offense, there is no sin. So if you don't have a rule, then there cannot be anybody who breaks that rule. So if we all say we want to live inside this one house or this one room, 6 of us can live in the room successfully, provided we can follow the rule. Now, if one person says they cannot follow the rule, that's where problem comes about. And the remaining 5 should be ready to met out judgment. And that is why they say countries should be based on rule of law. The problem, I see a lot of people say, oh, this is the problem of Nigeria, that is the problem of Nigeria. But the problem of Nigeria is that the leadership do not obey the rules and regulation of the country. Or the leadership choose not to obey the rules and regulation of the country. And that is where the problem lies. So when we come into Yoruba, the peculiar problem we witnessed in the 1960s during the time of Akintola and Chief Awolowo. Now, Awolowo was the premier, and
Mm.
Awolowo was Yoruba leader. Now, but when you say Yoruba leader, we're talking of Awolowo was a political leader, a
Yeah.
political Yoruba leader. Now, there was no structure for when Awolowo leaves the podium, who becomes the leader, or how does the leadership emerges.
Mm.
Now, when Akintola became the premier and Awolowo had gone to the federal government,
Mm.
you had a problem between the premier, Akintola, and the governor, who was the Oni of Ife at that time. And at that time, there was a question of how do you remove the premier? It wasn't stated in the rule. And so there was this back and forth. There was this back and forth. There was no rule on how it could be done. So the governor removed the premier because the house does not support the premier. And the premier also say, I am removing the governor. So
Mm.
before we can move forward as Yoruba now, we need to sit down and then discuss within ourselves how we want to structure the leadership of Yoruba land going forward. Because that is the first fundamental thing we need to solve. That's the first fundamental problem we need to solve and
Thank
then
you.
move forward from there. Because when you're having all these traditional rulers, traditional leaders who cannot be cohesive to say, okay, this is what we want. They only say they want this when money is involved and then when it benefits them. But that is not leadership.
Mm. Thank you very much. Okay. I think we have some things to share about
Yeah.
what's going on in Yoruba land.
Yeah.
Do you want to brief people on that?
Before we share it, it's about politics and things. We see a lot of people respect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and that's because Asiwaju, our system now no longer rewards hard work. Asiwaju is somebody who is made so much money for himself at the expense of the state, and he has been choosing leaders. So they call that Afobaje. He's been choosing leaders in all Yoruba kingdoms and places and political, traditional, and whatever. And one of the people who worked for Asiwaju, Rauf Aregbesola, he was a former commissioner under Asiwaju. And then
Yeah. I
because
remember.
of his loyalty and things, he became the governor of Osun State. And
Mm.
even Asiwaju bragged at one time that he's richer than the Osun State that
Mm.
Aregbesola was. Now, whatever is going on in the life and politics of the Yoruba people, Rauf came out last week and said he is no longer following Asiwaju any longer. And what now happened was now there were factions fighting each other, uh,
Mm.
throwing guns, machetes at each other.
Mm.
And because Nigeria is what it is today, the lack of leadership, those who have done that, nothing will happen to them. We all saw the Capitol Hill riot when the
Mm.
president was even telling the rioters to go march on. All those people who perpetrated that evil or that actions, they were called to justice. And that is why I say we need to have rule-based system. Because we have no rule now, those people and things that happened last night, we go and nobody will ask any question. So you can play the video so that our audience can see what we've degenerated into as a people.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that happened last night. It was being shared on the social media, and the reports we had was some faction between that supports Raoul Farebeshola and the other faction. Your fight, and you could see people throwing machetes, people throwing guns at each other. We don't know whether they were
There are
casualties.
two versions of that. There are two
Yeah,
versions of the story. Some people said it's a clash between Fulanis and
and
Yorubas,
Yorubas,
and,
and some people
and
say
another version says it's a clash between Aregbeshola's team and
and the other
Ashwaju's team.
team. But in either case, it just shows the breakdown of law and order. If
Mm,
people can go to that level, where we are the police, who we are supposed to be acting when there is civil disobedience, where we are the police force, it tells you how our environment, our country has broken down into. So that's just a leadership failure, and to the fact that this has happened in Yoruba land.
yeah.
Now, so what I said was in the terms of coalition, when people come together and sign treaties among themselves. Now, the Yorubas have not deemed it fit to say if something happened to a Yoruba man in Lagos State, it affects the man in Osun State.
Mm,
If something happens to the man in Osun State, it affects the man in Ondo State. So
mm,
we've not gotten to that level of brotherhood to say if something happens to my brother in Ondo State, then it affects me.
mm.
So the Yorubas need to come together and fashion out for themselves leadership. Otherwise, even when we get the Yoruba nation today, it's still going to be a problem because we still need to work that out. So working it out now doesn't it doesn't there's no harm in it in trying to phantom how that leadership structure works. Now we're going to share the other video about a particular area in Lagos. Now, I've been to. I was born in Lagos, and this particular area is where I grew up in Lagos. And day in, day out, morning, night, the traffic on that road is hell. And when I mean hell, I mean hell. You could be there for 12 hours trying to navigate traffic. And when I was coming back to the UK last year, when I was coming back to the UK, I almost missed my flight because I was traveling past that road. In fact, somebody had told me to get ready to leave for the airport 6 hours before my flight. And I was thinking I was in the UK. I said, no, I need to leave 3 hours before my flight.
Mm.
And I was stuck in that traffic. How we came out, I don't even know. But by the stroke of fate, we came out. But I was so disoriented that half of my luggage, I had to send it back because I just couldn't phantom anything. Half of my luggage, I had to send it back. So that is what people could lose. Traffic can cost us a lot.
I know.
And a lot of people don't know how many manpower hours we waste
Mm.
where we waste people's time on the road. And that is also a failure of leadership. So you can
Thank
play
you.
the video if you find time, please.
The mama dey here.
Quite a lot of containers on the road.
Lagos.
This is horrible.
Wow.
This is horrible.
Wow.
Really, really horrible.
Wow.
or we have a governor in Lagos State.
Mm.
We have councillors, we have chairmen of local governments, we have trade unions, we have these. But who does the buck stops with?
Where does it stop?
We don't know. We don't know where the buck stops. The box, everybody passes it to each other. The
Mm.
governor of the state is supposed to be responsible for his state. But when you call the governor will tell you it's a federal road and there is nothing I can do about it. So what has happened to us as Yoruba? Because we don't have this cohesive leadership. If we have a Yoruba leadership that can take the bull by the horn and say, whatever happens to anybody, any Yoruba person in Yoruba land, or whatever activity that happens within Yoruba land affects me, I will
Thank
take
you.
it by the horn.
Thank you, Mr. K. But I keep going back to this point. Let's look inwards because it's not like we don't have leaders. It's not like we don't have good leaders. It's not as if we don't have leaders with good intention. But what about the people, the Yoruba people themselves? It's not like there's no good Yoruba man out there. No.
Yeah,
We know some.
the problem is I have traveled that road,
Mm,
and on one of the occasions while I was traveling that road, there were police, there were soldiers on that road, and nobody could control that traffic. You
mm.
saw bike men in their thousands face each other. You saw multiple trailers blocking motorway, express road.
I wasn't even talking about the video. I went back to leadership
Yeah,
because you talked about leadership, that we need a good
it's
leader
not.
that will lead us out of trouble, that will take the bull by the horn. So
Yeah,
I left, you see, when it comes to roads and politicians and taking responsibility and owning up to their mistakes, I've given up on that. God
we
will
can't
save
give
us.
up. We
No,
can't give up.
I'm just saying my own. Like me, I don't have, I don't believe in the present leadership we have in Nigeria. The
Yeah, that's
present
that,
leadership.
that's
I've
true.
given up
Yeah, the thing is
personally.
leadership starts from the home. You see, the family is so complete in the way it is designed,
Mm,
where you have the father, you have the mother, you have the children in a nucleated
mm,
family. The father of the house is supposed to take his responsibility as the leader of the house and provide for his family. Now, some family, the father may have 5 children, 6 children, 7, 8 children.
mm,
You don't expect one of the children to become the leader of that family. Now, what any of the children could do is they could point out things when things are going wrong, or when the father is not being the leader of that house.
mm.
But it will be difficult to ask a child to become the leader of the house. You understand? It will be
I
difficult
get
to
you.
ask the child to become the leader of his house, of that house, because if the father is not there, then the leadership automatically should go to the mother.
Mm,
Now, say the father and the mother are late. It depends on the age of the children. Then it shows that there cannot be an adult
mm.
they can, depending on the age, if they're below 18 or whatever. But I don't want to use age factor
Yes.
because some 15 years old could be matured and you could have some 18 years who are not matured. So you now call the if it is a, let's say one of the child is now in their 20s who have younger siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what they can do is that elder one can now rise up to the occasion to say, I want to now become the leader of this family. My father and my mother are no longer there anymore. They rise up to the occasion to now take care of their younger siblings.
I
which is
get you.
a system we see in the Igbo tradition. When the father is no longer there, the first son becomes the
Yeah.
head of the family.
Of the
So
family.
everything the father owns automatically goes to the first son, and every of their sibling respects that. So that is leadership. So when you now translate that nucleated family setting, you now go to the
Mm,
extended family setting. Now, when you
mm,
go to the extended family setting, so you're now calling leaders of each house within an
yeah.
extended family. Now, with leaders of each house, now what Yoruba has always done is they now use the eldest among them to
Mm,
become the Olori Ebi.
mm,
You understand? They use the eldest among them to become the Olori Ebi. And when the
okay.
eldest becomes the Olori Ebi, he then directs the family. So they use age to say, because of your age, you become the leader.
Thank you. But with what we know now, what you and I know now, the Yorubas will say Agba Okogbon. Maturity is not according to your age. However, in also our culture, we have to honor our elders, respect our elders. And a lot of times they are right. But there comes a time where the Yorubas will always say, Omode logbon, agba logbon. When are we going to actually come together? I'm talking about followership now. Because when we say leaders, 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 let's even look at politics in Nigeria. If you're a good leader, you have good intentions, you have everything, you run for the office, you will not get there. 8 out of 10 times. I will not say never. 8
Yeah.
out of 10 times in the present state of that country.
So I'll tell you where followership responsibilities come, and it will still go back to leadership. Now, among the followers, among the followers, because what you're asking, the responsibility of a follower. Now,
Hmm.
followers are looking for their daily bread. They should not be burdened with the problem of leadership. You understand? I
Yes.
can I should not burden my 2-year-old to provide food for themselves.
Hmm.
So if my 2-year-old goes hungry, it is my fault as a father and leader of that child because I have failed that child. Immediately, I cannot no longer perform my responsibility as a leader. Then somebody else takes that leadership. Now, when we now translate this into a national scenario, now what the followers can do, what the followers can do is then, and that's what is led to revolution in so many climates. You saw the French Revolution when the king, when the queen said, well, it doesn't matter whether you can eat bread or if you cannot eat bread, go and eat biscuit. There's no flour, so what do we do? Now, what did the people do? The people said, well, you are supposed to be the leader. So if you
Hmm.
cannot provide for us, then there is no place for you anymore.
Hmm.
And that is what led to the French Revolution, to say, we don't want you anymore. And today, monarchy was abolished in France, and we have the presidential system in France.
Okay.
So when it now comes to followership, now let's take the example of that traffic. Are we saying among the thousands of people using that road every day, nobody saw a problem and nobody knows how to fix it, and nobody has gone to whoever it is, whether the governor or the commissioner or the president, to say there is a problem here?
Let's carry our viewers along. Which road are we talking about? What's the name of
The
the road?
Apapa Oshodi, and it's the same with all
Yeah,
the
I
roads in
know.
Nigeria. But we're
I know,
talking of
but yeah, I know.
Apapa Oshodi Expressway.
Okay. And thank you. If you'd like to call in, some people are sending me private messages. If you would like to call into the show, the number to call, the WhatsApp number to call is +44 7957 930 988. I will repeat, +44 7957 930 988. That's the number to call to dial into the show. Thank you. You can go on, Mr. K.
Yeah, so thank you very much. So that's the problem we have. So when we're talking of followership, we now need followership. The followership will still have to build leadership among themselves if the people
Mm.
who are the mainstream leaders are not doing it. And that is what movements like the Yoruba self-determination struggles, where we have several organizations coming out and saying enough is enough.
Mm.
It is the failure of leadership that has resulted in that. And so when the momentum is greater, the real question will now be asked. And that is where we now need to redefine the mode and the leadership that Yoruba nation will take going forward. Because all these are still pertinent questions we need to ask and answer.
Thank you. I don't think this leadership issue is something we can resolve in one day. We have
Not
to
at
start
all.
inviting, especially leadership in Yoruba land. I believe we need to start inviting the Yoruba leaders or some Yoruba elders to this program to come and talk to us about way forward only on the leadership in Yoruba land because we need answers. Look, we're no longer youths. These are the problems that we've experienced as kids. They're still existing today. And we're no longer kids. Our children are asking us the same questions. Where are we going? Sometimes when I talk about, oh, Yoruba people, Yoruba nation, my kids just look at me sometimes. Some of them, one of them will say, Mom, do you think can you even see it in the foreseeable future? Can you see it? I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but with what you guys are doing, do you think it's
It, it, will, it, will, it,
anywhere?
will, it will happen. It takes time. I wrote an article
Eventually,
yesterday.
yes. But
I
we
wrote
need
an
to give them
article about
answers. We need to
Ismail.
show them.
Of course, it will happen. I wrote an article about an article yesterday about empires, and I talked about Ismail Chemali. I happen to have been to Albania. I've been to the town where Chemali was born. I've been to his museum and seen his works. And this is one leader who, when the Ottoman was coming down, Chemali was able to rise to the occasion to say, enough is enough. I want my people freed. I want freedom for my people. And funny enough, Albania is one of the few countries that I have traveled and I could drive because it's so peaceful. The environment is so serene. The people are loving. But it took one person to say enough is enough to actually lead his people. And we have people who have come out to say, no, enough is enough. And one of them is Professor Banji Akintoye, who has
Yes.
gone charming everybody with his skills and saying, we need a change. We need a change, and change we must get. So it's going to happen for the Yoruba people. But one thing I don't want the Yoruba people as well to be naive to think
Mm.
it's just with a silver bullet you can solve it, because it's a very big challenge. It took Britain more than 40-50 years to solve that problem, and when they solved it, I wouldn't even say they solved the problem. They just confused the problem. They never solved that problem till today, but they were just in a way able to manage and patch it. And our leadership in Yoruba seems to accept it, because to them they don't bother. But we still need to sit down within ourselves, not with an external body, not with the
Mm.
Igbo telling us how to do it, not with the Fulani or Hausa or the Jaw or whatever. It is still the Yoruba people that
They
needs to
don't.
sit down and say, this is, so that when you go to Brazil today, or when you go to Jamaica, or when you go to France, you say, this is Yoruba and this is what we are. And that
Mm.
has to come from leadership. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Thanks to everyone watching us on YouTube, and they're now watching us on Facebook as well. Thanks for your private comments, but I would suggest that next time, please put your comments on live on the under the videos so that you can be part of the conversation, so that we'll be able to read out your comments as well. This is where we'll say thank you very much and bye bye today. We will be back, same place, same time next week. We're on Podium International TV on YouTube and Podium Radio and Television on Facebook. So feel free to join us every weekend, every Saturday at 12 o'clock. And if you have any other comments, send the message in. Today's topic again, we've been discussing leadership in Yorubaland, and I think it's about time we shed a lot of lights on it and see how we can unravel. So from myself, I will say thank you very much and see you next week. And Mr. K,
Thank you very much. Hopefully, we can solve the leadership problem and then move forward in Yoruba land. Thank you. God bless you.
amen. Please protect yourself from the storm. Storm Eunice is still pretty much around in the UK, in the southeast of the UK. May God be with us all. Bye bye.
Amen. Thank you.